What's up, guys? It's Damp. I apologize for the last issue that we had when it came to a little bit of the editing and the audio. So I told you I suck at editing, but this was actually more of an issue with uploading two files simultaneously and not being able to delete one of them. So it got hung up, and that's part of the reason why you haven't seen the antiquarian video that'll be going up, which, again, another thing, must have had a problem with YouTube and some of the editing that I did there. So I apologize, but this should fix it. So moving on. So looking at the Bryggen Fight, most of you are kind of here to probably see how you beat him. So let's go kind of into the fight mechanics in general and kind of what you'll see in front of us. We'll start there. So he basically takes 2 turns. So he'll be susceptible to bleeds or blights if you're able to get him either bled or blight, because it will take technically two ticks per turn. The other piece of him is he summons the barrels of bombs behind him that have repost on it. So every time you strike it, you're going to take damage, and you'll see that in the fight and kind of the cadence of the fight. He also has the ability to call additional troops. He has the ability to stun, and he has the ability to guard some of the troops that he calls up, the bandit raiders. So there's a couple general strategies to how to fight him. One is just to DPS him down and make it a DPS race, which is kind of how I do it, but since this is going in blind, I will give you some better recommendations. The second idea is to bring a leper. That's my personal recommendation. I would not recommend the A-bomb, just because of the amount of stress that the A-bomb can bring. But bring a leper and use his hue to eliminate the like the front 2 mobs that are in the bandit raiders that he summons. So you can manage that and then kind of chip away at him. Those are the 2 general strategies that are used. My recommendation is to bring more damage and to bring more trinkets that favor damage, which is not what I do here, which is why it takes me like 10, 11 turns probably to get through this fight. So here's a couple things that I'd recommend. So you'll see with the trinkets that I utilize that on my man-at-arms, I think that's a crescendo box that you see there. And then you'll see that I brought like some prot trinkets. Those are fine because he's going to take damage. You're going to use him to guard who's getting the bomb and to mitigate some of the damage. The other piece of it is that if you look through the rest of my guys, and I really selected dodge and kind of favored dodge, and I tell you absolutely don't do that. Speed's okay, but you really don't need a ton of it because the wolf is slow. He's only his speed's only 4. So eliminate dodge, don't bring it. I don't think it helps that much. And I also wouldn't bring stun. Like I brought the stun trinket for the Houndmaster. I wouldn't recommend bringing that either because you're really gonna just try and DPS him down. Now I will say it is helpful to have somebody who can stun before you get to the dungeon, before you get to the boss fight rather, in his dungeon. That is something that will help you immensely, because if you notice the amount of stress that I come in to the fight, about 2 to 3 bars for most of the guys. As you get towards the end of the fight, they're going to be really, really, really close to getting afflicted if they aren't already afflicted. And that can be the difference that will make or break you when it comes to, you know, really looking at the end of the fight. It could make or break you from your party getting wiped. So my advice again would be to bring high damage, high crit trinkets. The additional crit will help you mitigate some of your stress, and then also damage him down. I've heard some people have been able to 2 or 3 shot him if they hit him hard enough. So Arbalist would probably play well. Definitely bring a Vestal, maybe a Bounty Hunter, or the Houndmaster's okay too. Just remember to use his dog treats. So while we're kind of in the middle of the fight here, I'll give you an idea on some of the mistakes I made or what I wish I would have done differently now that I've seen the fight. So the first one is the trinkets. We kind of covered that already. The second one is I don't really eliminate the debuffs by using the herbs, which I should have done. And I don't utilize the holy water to give me buffs to kind of eliminate the bleeds that can happen. Because bleed resist isn't necessarily a make or break, but it's always a good thing to have a little bit of a luxury for. So If you notice, like right there, they're triggering debuffs on us, and I'm not wiping them, which I should be on the next turn. I always forget to use my dog treats. It's one of the worst things that I have when I play the game. Is very rarely do I ever remember to use it. So remembering to use those is a big thing. The only real advantage you have for dodge, if you're bringing dodge people, or like dodge tanks as they're called, is really just they're going to avoid a little bit of stress. But I don't feel that dodge helped, and it wasn't worth bringing that trinket. I would have rather brought damage trinkets. So another mistake I make is I go after Wolf, but I don't really go after him. I mean, I don't mark, I don't, really attack like I typically do on most of the boss fights, where I just 100% go after one person. Halfway through the fight, like we're in round 4 here, we're about halfway through, and you can see that I went after the barrel of bombs there. After doing some math halfway through the fight, like here, I was like, well, wait a second. I just hit the barrel. It's going to hit me for 8 damage with the repost. So if I kill it, if I'm lucky, I kill it in 2 hits, I still take 16 damage. If they just throw the bombs and I use the man-at-arms to guard, at least I'll be at the point where I also take 16 damage if he has 90% prod on. So why would I waste my time going after the barrel? Let me just go after Wolf. But after I'd figured that out, I'd wasted a few more turns than I probably needed to. So in kind of recapping a better party that I would recommend you guys is, if you're going to use the leper, I would probably say leper in the front row to manage the 2 bandits. Then I'd say either bring a bounty hunter or a houndmaster, bring a vestal, maybe bring an arbalist, because he'll be able to hit really hard. Just make sure you're trinketing high crit, high damage trinkets. Again, they'll help you mitigate some of your stress, and then they'll also be able to take Wolf out much quicker. That would have been probably one of the ideal parties, like if I was trying to manage through controlling the ads. If you're not going to control the ads and you just want to go after Wolf, it's almost really the same thing. Man-at-arms, arbalist, you'd look at either a houndmaster or bounty hunter, probably bounty hunter. And then obviously you want to bring a vestal. So that's kind of the party setup that you'll utilize. When it comes to trinkets, use the best stuff you got. If you're confident that you can go in, one thing you'll see is that my party is level 6. All of them are level 6. If you didn't have level 6 party, I'd probably tell you, if you have some heirlooms saved up, just take it on the chin and let them stomp through the town. I think you'd lose some characters if they aren't fully geared and really well trinketed by trying to go in and defend the town. It's almost better that if you know you have a bunch of those heirlooms saved up, just let it go and let them take over the town. And that's not typically a mentality that I'd recommend, but knowing that how difficult it can be to level 4, level 5 characters, you may end up doing that anyway. If you go to retreat and you've already lost a character or 2, and then they're going to stomp through the town anyway. So whoever you bring, make sure they're fully leveled up. Make sure you bring the right trinkets, which I would say high damage, high prot for your tank, and then additional healing and speed for your vestal. That's what I would recommend. Bleeds are okay. Like I use bleed here with a jester, but I think it just took too long. Again, he wasn't properly equipped from a trinket standpoint, but there he just crits and he hits for 10. So doesn't really hit hard. If you're looking at an arbalist, it's probably going to crit triple that. Sometimes depending on the buffs that they have, it could be even more than that. So an arbalist or a bounty hunter, I think, would be a much better replacement. One thing I should get into before we get into the really late stages of the fight, which I want to cover in detail, is what I was really careful about when I went into the dungeon was really slow playing the fights before it. This is going to be a short dungeon. In order to get to the boss, you're just going to go north. There is a treasure chest if you go to the right with ancestral trinkets, I believe is what it has in it. But I already had them all, so I couldn't tell you for sure what that would be. So when it comes to getting to the wolf fight, it's only going to be maybe 3 or 4 fights you get into, but really go slow. Stun lock, take your time, manage your health. And the reason I say you want to stun as much as possible is because you really want to slow play it and make sure your guys are fully healed when you get to wolf. So stop before you get to the second room, eat all your food, and then once you get into the fight, make sure, or even right at the door, would be a good idea to at least your front 2 rows or your first 3 rows, what you want to do is make sure they all have the holy water. I think that would give you a little bit of an advantage. So you'll see we're in round 7 now, and if you begin to look, we're getting to the point where we're almost afflicted. So the people who are taking the most affliction are the ones in the front row, the front 2 rows, obviously. The Jester obviously just had a crit, so that's going to reduce it a little bit. But realistically, you've got to make sure you have 2 bars or less probably before you go into the fight, or you should be preparing for being afflicted. And if you think you're going to get afflicted, you want to make sure that you are never using your Vestal to heal, or to not heal, I should say. Don't use her aggressively. You might be ahead in that fight for now, but later on, you're probably going to be working from behind, and if somebody passes on a turn that could either eliminate a mob or even the boss, or somebody's not going to heal, then that's going to be a really big deal later on. So what I tell people is when you're going to get afflicted, or you think you are, really try and slow down and heal, unless you have a distinct advantage in the fight, because you're going to get to the point where you could easily lose a character if you aren't conservative. So moving towards the end of the fight, you'll see we pick up a few crits, which is great. That helps a lot. In kind of what we have remaining is you'll see that we continue to just hammer down on the boss, despite the fact that the bandits have really been wailing away on us for the last few turns. I do at some point in the fight, you'll see that I manage through Death's Door. And like I tell you guys, Death's Door is almost like an additional heal. You're going to get knocked to Death's Door, but as long as you can heal back from it, it's almost like you get an additional hit point or 2 that takes you from going into death. So it's okay to manage Death's Door when you're in a boss fight, but the only way you can really do that reliably is if your healer is pretty fast, and that you can rely on her going before the other enemies. So in getting down to the last part of the fight, you'll see the Jester hits here. He triggers another bleed. And one thing you'll notice that I constantly do when I fight is you always see me when I trigger a bleed, I continue to look down and see how much blood is going to come out every single turn. That's something I do almost instinctively, and it's very basic to me. But some people over attack mobs that they don't need to because they're going to bleed to death on their next turn, or with their next turn or 2. So here I finally remember to start to use some of my buffs now that I have an advantage, but I think with the original Adrenaline Rush I didn't consider it as much. And Chad is always yelling at me to use my dog treats or use some of my buffs, and I'm never paying attention to Chad when I'm in these kind of fights. So you'll see we took him out there, and once you take him out, the barrels go away, and it just leaves you with the bandits that are left here, or the raiders, I guess I should call them. So that's pretty much the gist of the fight. Again, I didn't have a perfect party to go through, but I hope that kind of that walkthrough helps you guys and gives you a better idea on how to plan. Definitely not recommend taking it on if you have level 5 characters. You want to be using level 6 for sure. Make sure they have all their weapons, all their armor upgraded, and bring the right trinkets, like I covered earlier in the video. Again, I apologize for the video that went up yesterday that wasn't the greatest quality. I'm still learning this editing stuff, and the uploading apparently didn't trigger how I wanted it to. So with that, thanks guys very much for watching. I greatly appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next video.